investing GIC funds is not the solution to make equity market in Singapore more attractive. This is according to the Minister Chi Hong Tan. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, in this week's video, we are going to focus on why the Singapore stock market has been dead. Yes, it has been dead for decades. And essentially, what light has the GIC statement, as mentioned by Minister Chi Hong Tat, actually shed even greater light on the Singapore equity market? First and foremost, in a box up, the very first box up I've mentioned there, let me quote. GIC says that they already invest in appropriate Singapore companies if these have a global footprint and generate good returns. So does this not mean, therefore, that those equities listed in Singapore equity market are actually lacking global footprint and do not generate good returns? Henceforth, GIC basically may not or have not invested in a big way in them. First question. Now, the second question that's actually in the box up there is that it's mentioned that, by the minister, that I think there is a difference between asking them, as in basically GIC or Temasek, to make investment decisions based on returns and what is the best interest of shareholders. Now, shareholders being you, the Singaporeans, you and me. Does it therefore mean that essentially this statement actually allude to the fact that many of the Singapore equities are actually not generating good investment returns? Well, something again that we'll delve into depth in this week's video. Do subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Table shows the largest stock market in the world by market cap. Now look at where we rank Singapore. It's a pathetic 26th position at a market cap of $619 billion in US dollars. Now, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We are even worse off than Indonesia, that stands at $799 billion. We are even worse off than, say, South Africa, which actually is market capitalized at 1.23 trillion. Needless to say, we are actually a fraction. In fact, we are only one-third the size of the South Korean market, which has a market cap of US 1.8 trillion. Now, the other noticeable competitor where we are only a fraction of is actually the Hong Kong Exchange. The Hong Kong Exchange, according to this table from Wikipedia, is being capitalized at 4.1 trillion, whereas Singapore is barely 15% of the Hong Kong market. Now, not surprisingly, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of trading volume, the Singapore Stock Exchange is really a very dull, unexciting, and pathetic place. In fact, the trading volumes of neighboring countries like Indonesia as well as Thailand have actually surpassed Singapore stock market for already 2 to 3 years. Will this trend continue? You may report shows that Singapore banks, that the three major banks, DBS, OB, and OCBC, constitute right now 45% of market cap in Singapore. Now you add onto the REITs, which market cap of about 85 billion, talking about banks plus REITs in Singapore is already 2/3 of Singapore cap. It means that the 400 companies left in Singapore only have a market cap of roughly a million. Because when we were consulted by various other governments, and in my best-selling book that is actually written in China and translated into Chinese specific media, mentioned that the depth of the market as well as the breadth of the market is key in any successful development of market capital structures. Do have a read into that. Now, this next quote actually, gentlemen, tells you that maybe that's all because, the Nikkei, which actually hit a high 38,900 way back in 1989 when I first started my career in the investment banking industry. Then the next 30 years, the market just went haywire. You notice, ladies and gentlemen, essentially, 30 years for the Nikkei will regain back its high. And if it's going to be 30 years, boy, ladies and gentlemen, it's definitely not an area to be putting your money. Then, of course, Korea did succeed, but not to the scale as what the Japanese market was. Then you may be asking, ladies and gentlemen, what will then actually help to revive the Singapore Let me share with you, ladies and gentlemen, my recent investments in this company called Anglo American. And this is important because it's symptomatic of how good and strong companies, despite poor performances, still attract suitors. And in this case, this is actually not just a one time, two time, but three times attempted takeover by the largest minerals iron ore and copper company, that's BHP Bulletin. Now they are trying to take over Anglo American. The first offer was 39 billion pounds. Subsequently, it was raised up to 49 billion pounds as of May of this year. But ultimately, the offer was rejected. Now, if anything, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to illustrate to you. And that's why at GCP Global, when we actually advise our investors to actually invest globally, that includes investing in the UK, the US, also it encompasses investing beyond the Singapore technology. Why strong companies will attract great suitors. And even if the price is not right, you can and every time they are privatized, they are privatized at lower prices, where essentially law has actually been mandated to want to actually protect minority shareholders. That's happening in Singapore and has been happening for the last few decades. Contrasted to say a current takeover bid by Anglo American, that's a company that in the last couple of years, by BHP Bulletin. It was revised three times. The initial offer was 39 billion pounds. Now it's actually 49 billion pounds. And guess what? It was also reviewed. The moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen, is this: you see, Anglo American, even though it's not well run, obviously can be run better. It still has the likes of the copper mines in South America, in the key mines in Australia, as well as actually in certain areas in Africa. They actually also have gold mines. They also have molybdenum, which is actually part of rare materials. Now, in our GC Global Investors classes, we have actually told our investors to recruit index managers of real investment trusts, family offices, and high net worth individuals, essentially positioning into commodities as well as the miners sector, including the likes of BHP, Rio Tinto, Anglo American, Barrick Gold, as well as the likes of Newmont, are key actually riding and protecting yourself from, the rising friction as well as interest rates, which became the, in the last 3 years. Now, essentially, you notice, ladies and gentlemen, well, we actually diversify into these miners. We are key and studying them into these companies. But contrasted with Singapore companies, you notice that Singapore companies are going for a song, whereas good companies listed even in London, in this case, even if a good suitor is coming in like BHP Bullets, you can't get it 39 Bullet will raise their money. It's what, yeah, still being rejected. So can you see that big difference between the Singapore companies, which basically are being bidded off and privatized at lower prices, whereas the likes of Anglo American that I own as well as my investors own actually are getting higher prices despite not well run. The original question whether the Singapore stock market will be able to recover, ladies and gentlemen, after so many years in the doldrums. Well, if GIC is not going to help, if government agencies Temasek are not going to help, you know, that asks us and leaves us as to who else is able to come into the ring. Now, essentially, in the development of any capital markets, it is key that all multi-agencies are able to actually engage in that. If not, many investors, including us, as well as the various investors that we advise, the high net worth individuals, family offices, help to just go and gravitate towards what markets and areas and sectors, and including mining, which is obviously has a higher risk return ratio, will be able to be putting and allocating their money Now, if I may, I'll just leave with you essentially what I say in the Singapore Corporate Awards when I was the host.
Thank you everyone for your attention and congratulations to the winners. We now passing back to Elaine and Terry as, hello, okay, Superman to the rescue of the traffic problem at Sentosa Gateway. See you, adios, ladies and gentlemen, from me and my co-host, Elaine. Jeez.